I'm Terry Shepard. Being a confident podcast guest is a skill that can be learned. And that's why I wrote How to Become a Dynamic Podcast Guest and Sell Stuff. It's a sweet and short primer that teaches you about the gear, the appearance, and the messaging that can grab and hold today's micro attention spans and motivate your listeners to take action. How to Become a Dynamic Podcast Guest and Sell Stuff. The digital version is just $1.99 at Amazon. Grab your copy today and sell more books tomorrow.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
My connection with best-selling author and Renaissance man Lee Goldberg goes back 8 years to the presentation I witnessed at my first Thriller Fest. I soon read the first of many Lee Goldberg books that are in my library and have been a fan ever since. Lee's list of accomplishments in print and on the big screen is breathtaking, but like most of us, he still harbors that primal fear that whatever book he's working on might be his last. That's definitely not the case with the launch of the first book in his new mystery series, Murder by Design. At its center is Edison Bixby. Wealthy, handsome, brilliant, and almost impossible to be around. He has extraordinary powers of perception, and a traumatic brain injury has left him the knack for saying exactly the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. To help him navigate the world, he is paired with Wally Nash, a struggling actor hired to be his social buffer. The story opens with what looks like a tragic accident, but Bixby sees something no one else does. He believes the mall itself was manipulated to turn architecture, layout, lighting, and design into instruments of murder. Lee Goldberg, it feels like your writing is effortless. True or false?
It's not effortless at all. I'm a total psychological and physical wreck. There's nothing effortless about it. It's amazing I can speak coherently. Edison Bixby's powers of perception are not the result of the traumatic brain injury. The traumatic brain injury just removes his ability to think before he speaks. He doesn't have a censor anymore. He says whatever comes through his head. And like if he thinks somebody's fat, he just says, "My God, you're fat." He just isn't able to stop himself. Or maybe he can. There's a little question about how traumatic the injury is. But no, his ability to solve crimes by looking at design preceded his brain injury.
Where did the title Murder by Design come from?
It came to me from that quote. And I don't know where I came across that quote, but it stuck with me. And over the years, I just read so many books about design and how not just architecture, but devices and landscape design and grocery store design and everything that man does shapes your behavior and constricts your behavior and manipulates you in amazing ways. And we are dumb sheep. We just let ourselves be driven by this because our whole world around us is built. 90% of what we experience is things that man has built to put a buffer between us and nature, to either control nature or to make our lives easier or to control us. And we just blithely go along with it. But Edison Bixby, in a way, is a design sociopath. He sees it and doesn't obey it and is able to tell exactly how it made a crime, if not possible, then inevitable. Maybe the other way around. If not inevitable, certainly possible. But also inedible.
I found Edison to be a fascinating character, but it had to be hard to write, finding that balance between making him difficult and making him irresistible. Do you feel like you achieved that in Murder by Design?
I don't think I did. I think part of the pleasure of Edison Bixby is he's as offensive as he is appealing. Sherlock Holmes is an asshole too, pardon my language, but no one likes Sherlock Holmes. He's a creep. Nero Wolfe is a creep. Hercule Poirot is a creep. Most of these eccentric detectives with brilliant deductive superpowers you wouldn't want to have dinner with. And I wanted to honor that trope, but also make Edison Bixby different from all these other detectives like Adrian Monk and Nero Wolfe and all these others, in that he's not socially inept. He's not celibate. He's gorgeous. He's rich. He's getting laid all the time. He's not one of these social outcasts that most of these detectives are.
The book is Murder by Design, written by our special guest, Lee Goldberg. LeeGoldberg.com is the website. Classic detective fiction often depends on a Watson figure. Is Wally your version of that tradition?
Oh, absolutely. This book is meant to not only honor the traditions of the classic eccentric detective whodunit, but to also twist the tropes and also to shine a light on them to say, here's the formula. And yes, I'm doing it, but damn, isn't it stupid? And let me now turn in a different direction. Because in my book, I have the narrator talking about Monk and Sherlock Holmes and Nero Wolfe. He knows where he fits in this fictional world. Obviously, it's a real world in the book, but he's very much aware of the formulas that people are going to impose on his relationship with Edison Bixby. And now that he's writing this book, the formulas he has to stick within and how constraining he finds it. My narrator is not reliable. He's also may not be entirely sane, but he may have his own psychological problems.
We all have a little bit of autobiography in the stories we tell. Is there any of you in Edison?
Oh, there's me in everything I write. That's the thing. I wrote a book many years ago called True Fiction about this character who writes spy novels. And then the spy stuff starts coming true, and he has to become the spy he writes about in order to survive. And he says, but I'm not a spy. I haven't been trained to do this. And what people tell him is everything in your book came from in your head. You obviously have the knowledge. You may not have the physical prowess or the actual experience, but you know how to think like a spy. So just think like you're writing one of your books and apply that to the real world. And it's inevitable that every character I write is a version of me or the way I look at the world. Many years ago, when I was in college, I interviewed Danny Arnold, who created Barney Miller. And I asked him, what's the secret to Barney Miller? And he says, oh, the secret is no matter what character, whether it's a black person or an Asian person or the Monsignor, they're all Jews. Once you watch Barney Miller that way, you realize, oh my God, he's right. They all sound like my grandfather. They all have the same humor and the same point of view, the same Jewish humor, the same Jewish point of view. And Jewish humor has dominated television and film for so many years. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, it's true. We are what we write. And my wife likes to say, she's French. And she says, if I die before my husband, I don't care if I meet by a meteor or a bus. I want a complete investigation. Because all he does is come up with perfect murders that he solves. But I bet he could get away with one. When my wife reads a book or watches a TV show of mine, there's a character who's a real sleazy scumbag. She knows it comes from somewhere within me. And that really bothers her. How can you think like that? Who are you? I cannot believe you're the man I married.
How many years have you been married?
Oh my God, 38?
What's the secret? Why does she stay?
Good question. Good question. Between my drug addiction, my gambling, and the affairs, it's amazing she sticks around. Plus, as you can see, I've let myself go. Thanks to the Wegovy, I've got old man neck and hair's falling out. And
where do your ideas come from?
Desperation, fear, terror. No, my ideas usually come from the character first. I think of an interesting character, and then what story can I come up with that will reveal that character in funny or interesting ways? I never start with the mystery. I always start with the character, and then the mystery grows out of that. What would it take to really tighten the screws to this character, to really put this character under pressure, to create impossible obstacles for this character? And then the mystery kind of reveals itself, or the crime, or whatever. That's especially true in my Eve Ronin novels. Like for Edison Bixby, I know I've got to come up with impossible crimes or crimes or incidents that seem so routine that it couldn't possibly be a crime. How could a crime have been committed here? In a way, it's an impossible crime in reverse. It looks like there's no way a crime could have occurred, and yet there is one behind this seemingly mundane, routine event. And that becomes, so I have a list of ideas for that I could plug into Edison Bixby, but then it takes an extraordinary amount of research to make those mysteries not only work, but seem simple at the same time. Complex to the reader, but simple to Edison Bixby. So once he says it, you go, oh my God, why didn't I see that? It's for a different book, but I visited because of what I'd learned from Edison Bixby about the fixed world in my research. I was in Australia researching a Sharp and Walker novel, and I went to this museum in Tasmania that was inside this mountain. It was impregnable. There was no way you could rob this museum. And when I looked at it like Edison Bixby, I realized, oh my God, I could rob this place. And I actually not staked it out, but I looked around it and as if I were going to rob it. And I figured out, oh my God, I could. And I made that the plot of my book, Hidden in Smoke. I fictionalized that museum. and how I would break into this other one. And so now I find myself looking at the world the way Edison Bixby does, and that helps me come up with plots.
We're talking with Lee Goldberg about Murder by Design. LeeGoldberg.com is the website. You have a great gift for balancing humor, high stakes, and great plots. How do you keep all that stuff in balance?
I can't sing and I can't dance, but I can feel the rhythm of a book. I can feel the rhythm of a story. And if something feels out of step, like I'm losing the rhythm, then I've got to make changes until I feel instinctively that the rhythm is back. And I don't know how to explain that. I don't know exactly what I do to create that rhythm or even what that rhythm is, but I do feel it. I feel it in scripts too, in television. I look at an episode, and if the rhythm feels wrong to me, I start making changes in the scenes so that the episode has the rhythm. I feel it in the editing room when I'm cutting an episode. I feel the rhythm, but it's hard to quantify, to explain. It's so intuitive. And my intuition may be off. It's just good for me. It's a rhythm that I feel, maybe a rhythm no one else feels.
Do you think cinematically?
Yes, I absolutely do. I would say that working in television has made me a better novelist. In fact, my system for writing books changed dramatically. I wrote a book, a screenplay a long time ago called True Fiction, and the screenplay wasn't selling, so I novelized it into a book. And it worked so much better as a book than it did as a screenplay. And so I started writing all my books as screenplays first, not with any intention of showing the screenplay to a soul, because I don't. My books are optioned all the time for movies and television, and not to me. I'm not going to be writing those scripts. Somebody else is. But I do it for myself. It's to get the story on its feet. So I have the idea for the story. I write an outline, and then I write the script. The script takes me maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And then I know the story works. The dialogue is there. The scenes are there. It doesn't mean I'm going to stick to what I wrote, but I've gotten it out of my system. So now I spend the next month or two coloring between the lines, novelizing my script. But I'm not plotting. I know the story works. I'm just refining. And I think it gives my books the feel of a movie or TV show because they're driven more by dialogue and action than exposition or internal monologues, which I think slow down a book. And I wish that more writers practiced the structure of a movie or TV show. And the other thing is, I inevitably write these books in a movie or television structure. You will feel the 3 acts or you'll feel the 4 acts. I just think that people intuitively appreciate that structure. They feel it when they watch a TV show or movie. And if a movie or TV show doesn't follow it, it's disappointing to them. So I like the fact that people read my books and think, oh, it's like watching a movie. I don't think that'll be the case with Murder by Design because most of my books are told in the third person and I let my authorial voice disappear. I don't want you to realize you're reading. But with a first person novel, you're very much reading because it's in the point of view of the narrator. So his voice is what's driving you or her voice. So that's different. The authorial voice is hugely important in a first person novel.
What are the special challenges of launching a new series?
Establishing the characters, creating the universe, creating the franchise. It's just like a television pilot. You've got to create a platform from which many more stories can be told. So you have to establish conflicts that can be mined again and again in fresh ways. And that's a big challenge. So I write every book that I hope will lead to sequels as if they are television pilots, as if I need to come up with 22 more episodes. I better create a platform that makes that possible.
How do you build chemistry between two characters who don't necessarily understand each other?
That's exactly how you create the chemistry. It's through the conflict. It's through those rough edges and their attempts to smooth them. That's how you reveal character. That's how you create humor. That's how you create drama and terror. It's essential. That's why so many of my books have a partnership at the center. You want to have somebody the protagonist is bouncing off of, or a group of people the protagonist is bouncing off of. Otherwise, you don't have the conflict.
We're talking with Lee Goldberg about Murder by Design, his latest and greatest. This one honors classic whodunit traditions while also playing with them, which you do so well. Which mystery traditions were you most eager to embrace, and which are you most eager to twist?
I love these mystery traditions. I'm a huge mystery fan, so I like reading a good whodunit. I love Anthony Horowitz's Hawthorne novels, where Anthony Horowitz has made himself a character, These stories are set in his own world as a TV writer and novelist, and he's fictionalizing the fact that he's writing books about this cop. He has also taken the whodunit and revealed how the sausage is made, to use a cliche. So I want to honor the tropes. I want this to work as a classic whodunit, but I also want it to be different and fresh, to have a new angle, one that justifies me writing the book. If it's just like Monk or just like Nero Wolfe or Hercule Poirot or the Hawthorne novels, there's no point. I have to make it my own in some way. And that's what I try to do, come up with a central character who I hope is unlike any of these others. Most of them don't have sex lives. Most of them are socially inept. Most of them have no money. Most of them are somewhat reclusive outsiders. My guy's not. My guy's like James Bond, not James Bond, but he was like James Bond before he got shot in the face. He has beautiful home. He has fantastic cars. He dresses great. Limitless amount of money. I guess he was a little bit inspired by a show I liked as a kid, Burke's Law, which starred Gene Perry as a millionaire homicide detective. It was ridiculous. He showed up at crime scenes in a Rolls Royce. I have Edison Bixby in the prelude when he's a cop showing up at crime scenes in a Bugatti with a bubble light on top. I like to have fun with that. And he's not the typical guy. It's unusual to see a detective like this sleeping with women. They just don't. Adrian Monk doesn't. Sherlock Holmes, and when he finally gets hooked up with a woman, she's a psychopath. So that's fun. And plus, although the first book is set entirely in California and Los Angeles, I'll be traveling. The opening of the second book is in Singapore. So this is not just in one place.
You have co-authored with people like Janet Ivanovich. You have also worked in the writer's room on TV series. How has collaboration impacted your voice as a solo author?
I love collaboration. It forces you to stretch, to not give in to your own cliches and tropes. All us writers have them. Look at Robert B. Parker. How many times did he run out of creative gas and end a chapter with, "We'd be fools not to"? You could always tell when Parker had written himself into a corner, he was bored with what he was writing, when he starts resurrecting conversations from old books. A writer's room and a collaborator force you to compromise, to try new things, to find other approaches. And sometimes it's for the better, sometimes for the worse, sometimes only different. But you're not alone in the journey, and you can turn to other people to help you. If the scene's just not working out, you can go to the other people in the writer's room, and they know what that scene's about and can really help you. They have insights, and that's great. Though one thing with that's better about writing a book is you don't have all that collaboration. You don't have people imposing their point of view on things. And plus, in TV, it's not just the writer's room. You're getting input from the network, the studio, the directors. You're also a slave to the shooting schedule and the budget and how many scenes have to be on the standing sets, how many on location, the number of guest stars you can have, the number of days and nights. There's a lot that goes into writing stories for TV that has nothing to do with creativity and everything to do with production and budget. So those are also things that impose on the story. But there's also a great creative thrill in working with all these really talented people and seeing what the director, the actor, the production designer, the wardrobe designer, the editor, the composer, what they bring to it, because the finished show is always so much different than the story you had in your mind when you started writing the script or even the outline. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's different. A lot can change in the editing room. It can become a completely different episode in the editing room. So I find great pleasure in both, which is why I keep my hand in both worlds. Here I have Murder by Design coming out June 1st, but the TV show I've been writing and producing, You're Killing Me, came out this week. And I'm still very much in both worlds. And You're Killing Me is all about writing mysteries. It's about a mystery writer and her young partner she's forced into working with, who's younger than her, comes from a different generation, has no experience writing books. And together they have to write a book, but also they end up solving crimes. And that series as well allows me to show how the sausage is made and talk about mysteries. But in the case of You're Killing Me, I'm crafting these mysteries, and I didn't create the show. Robin Bernheim did. She and I co-created the series Mystery 101 for Hallmark. We've known each other for 40 years. We've written a lot together over the years. So we're in a room crafting these mysteries and stuff, and it's great. It's not just me. It's Steve Sutton, who's won multiple Emmy Awards for Cheers, which he ran for years, and Boston Legal. And he's also co-authored books with Janet Ivanovich, and he's written novels of his own. So it's exciting to be in a room with those creative people. But by the same token, I'm kind of happy when I go back to my office and can write my book without all these people giving me their opinions and points of view and fixes. Sometimes I wish they would. Sometimes I'd like to show what I'm writing to them and say, help me. But I don't do that with my books. Nobody sees them.
What makes a mystery protagonist durable enough to carry a series?
They have to have rough edges. They have to have conflicts that can never be resolved. They have to have layers to their characters that you can explore. They're not obvious right away. They have to be fully three-dimensional and interesting, and they have to evolve. I know that Nero Wolfe and Spencer and so many, Travis McGee, and so many of these characters have stayed the same. Reacher hasn't changed, but Bosch has. There are characters who change. Stephanie Plum hasn't changed much in 35 Janet Ivanovich books. So in books and TV shows, you have to walk a thin line. It has to be the same in TV, has to be the same show every week, only different. In books, it has to be the same book every year, but different. Because readers come back for that character and they want the character they know and love. And they accept some changes around the edges, but they really don't want big changes. Which is why it's so amazing to me how my friend Michael Connelly has been able to change Bosch's life circumstances so radically and not lose his readers. Bosch was on the LAPD, and then he was a private detective, and then he was working for a small police force in San Fernando, and then he was working for a cold case unit. He's managed to shift him around. John Sanford with Lucas Davenport has changed this man's circumstances again and again, but still the essential character is there.
Does the world around Edison impact his evolution as a character?
The world around him changes and forces him to become slightly different, forces him to adapt and forces the author to adapt and forces the reader to adapt. I think the reason, I haven't talked to Michael about this, but one of the reasons I think he's done all these things with Bosch is to just maintain his own interest. I think the reason John Sanford has done is maintain his own interest. I've never asked Janet about this, even though she and I wrote 5 books together. Aren't you bored with Stephanie Plum? It doesn't change. And the same thing, Lee Child and I are friends. I haven't asked him. Reacher hasn't changed at all. He just keeps roaming around with his toothbrush, beating up people with ease, turning into one problem after another. You think he learned by now not to help anyone. This gets him fucked up.
You are one of the most prolific writers I know. How do you avoid repeating yourself?
I don't. Just the other night, I was writing something and went, oh, God, I'm so in touch with my muse. It's coming so easily. It's like a river. It's because I've written it before. Oh, my God, I've wrote this before. It's happened to me a lot. And the key then is to come up with plots where it's not possible for you to have written it before. Unfortunately, with the TV shows I write and the books I do, there will always be the freaking scene at the scene. When the detectives show up at the dead body, what do you do that's different? You know what? Oh, God, I've done this scene 150. I would want to be on Law & Order. How many times they found a body in Central Park and have to say something witty about the body? And every episode of Law & Order, because of the budget, you have 2 people having a discussion or doing something and stumble on a body. Because you don't want someone by themselves who's not talking to anybody stumble on a body. So and then the cops show up and they talk to some people and then they leave with a witticism. It's just, oh, God. And my friend Fief talks about how hard it was to come up with the Norm jokes for every single episode of Cheers. When Norm walks in, Norm, how's it going, Norm? And he says, I'm a dog biscuit. And the dogs keep biting me, whatever joke it is. So, yeah, it's not easy. And there are times where I realize maybe others won't, but the book is already out and I'll read part of it and go, oh, wait a minute. That is so close to something I did 10 books back. I'm such a weak and lazy writer. There are other writers who don't give a shit. You read Robert B. Parker in his later years, and he didn't plot. He was just typing, waiting for the story to come to him. He would write a scene, and then Susan and Spencer would have a scene talking about the scene we just read. And then Parker would have Hawk and Spencer talk about the scene he just had with Susan about the scene we've already read. Because he didn't know what story he was writing. He just typed until it came along. And he would repeat jokes and sequences. And, oh, God, how many times has Spencer said to someone he's beaten up, you should find another line of work? And, oh, I'm terrified. When Parker died and Ace Atkins took over the series, it was so much better. It's, no more lazy writing.
We're talking about Murder by Design with Lee Goldberg. Do you have time to read with all the stuff you're doing creatively?
Right now, no. Right now, I have a 3-book contract with harsh deadlines, and I'm working on a TV series, and I have no time to read for pleasure. And I'm also, because of Edison Bixby, having to read for research. For my series, I'm having to read for research. I'm reading scripts in the series because I have to give notes, and I'm reading outlines. Plus, I have a publishing company, Brash Books, and I'm reading manuscripts and rewrites for those books. I'm reading submissions. And so what little time I have for reading is when I listen to a book on tape, not book on tape, God, am I dating myself, an audiobook as I walk around the lake each morning. There's a lake by my house. But often I don't want to listen to fiction because I'm so wrapped up in the fiction I'm writing that I'll listen to some podcast that has nothing to do with mystery writing or crime. It's on a whole different topic.
What makes you happy?
Having written. I like getting the book. I like talking about it. It's so much better than having to write it. I just kind of wish I'd wake up in the morning and the book is written itself, and I can just take pride in its publication and hope that it does well.
You joke with me that you write to keep the bills paid, but you're getting pretty close to that point where you don't have to worry about that part of the business anymore. Will you keep writing when it's no longer a financial requirement?
The only reason I'm not in therapy is because I write. I'm not happy if I'm not writing, and I'm miserable when I'm writing. So it's complex. But I've been writing since I was a child. I am doing what I've always done. My life hasn't changed since I was 10 years old. I am still sitting and telling stories while listening to movie and TV soundtracks and eating junk food and drinking Diet Coke. I was doing that as a kid. I'm doing it now. I would love to go back in time and tell myself, don't worry, you're going to make a living doing this. You're going to be doing exactly what you're doing right now when you're an adult, and it'll feel the same way. Even though I've quote unquote made it, you see the book covers behind me on the wall and everything, I still at heart feel like that same kid and teenager trying to make it and wondering if anybody will ever read what I write or make a TV show or movie out of the scripts that I'm doing. I still get a thrill out of seeing my name on a book or my name on screen. It still doesn't seem quite real.
I love every minute I get to spend talking with Lee Goldberg. His latest is Murder by Design. I've read it, I love it, and I highly recommend it. LeeGoldberg.com is the website. Lee, it's great to be with you again. Thanks so much for the conversation.
My pleasure.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.